Jerry Izenberg joining me here on the Rich Eisen Show. How are you, Jerry?
Oh, it's great to be here. I tell you, at 86, it's great to be anywhere, but it's great to be here.
No, it's great to have you here. Why write this book now, Jerry?
Well, partially because I'm 86, and this whole book is written from memory. Really, it wasn't a question of research. It seems there's probably 100 people in the book, maybe more, and the only one I didn't know was Oni Madden, the original guy to run a mobster to run boxing. But I knew his right-hand man, Willie the Beard Gilzenberg. That's why I like to write boxing, because of the names. And Willie told me the few Oni Madden stories that are in this book. So really, everything is there. There's nothing to be challenged, and I wanted to put it down because there are no heavyweight champions. So I sort of feel like an archaeologist.
Why do you think there isn't? What's happened to heavyweight boxing,
Well,
Jerry?
a couple of things. And I don't want to hear mixed martial arts, please. I'll get that out of the way right now. I feel that if what's done in a mixed martial match, if you did it on the street, you'd be in prison. So I don't pay much attention to it.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, one reason is in America. One reason is how many trainers are left. There's probably 7 really, really good trainers left in this country. The Whitey Bimsteins, the Ray Arcells, the Eddie Fletchers, the Manny Stewarts, they're all gone. Without a teacher, people can't learn anything. Secondly, because the guys who look physically like they could be pretty good heavyweights, all things considered, their tight ends are power forwards, and they'll make more money than most fighters by far. And most, I said, the Mayweather paydays are so few. And that's where they will go. It's a much safer sport for them, I think. At least it's an easier one on the body. And finally, because we're eating pretty good in this country. And that's why if you're looking for heavyweights, you look to Eastern Europe because they're all eating potatoes. Hunger makes fighters, and any weight really, but particularly in heavyweights.
Jerry Izenberg, International Boxing Hall of Famer, and 54 years on the Newark Star-Ledger sports writing staff, covered Muhammad Ali for 5 decades, author of Once There Were Giants here on the Rich Eisen Show. What's your favorite Lou Duva story? I wanted that from you a few weeks ago.
Well, it's in the book, so here we go.
Let's go.
I'm standing near the tunnel before Madison Square Garden fight. And, part of the book has to do with the fraud. The smoke, the rap music, the hands in the air, all of this stuff, and the bullshit talk. Okay, well, it's time for this kid to go fight, and the music plays, and Lou says, "Let's go," and the kid says, "I ain't going." I said, "What do you mean you ain't going?" I ain't going. That's not my music. I don't go till I hear my music." Lou turns to me and he says, "Can you ever hear shit like that? Can you imagine Joe Louis standing there and saying he's going to wait for his music?" That's the story of boxing.
And that's Lou Duva for you too.
Oh, absolutely. Well, Lou Duva was. When I first met Lou Duva, I was a night editor and a morning editor, if there is such a thing, at the Patterson Evening News, which is struggling to exist. I don't even know if it exists anymore. Mm-hmm. But I would come in at 5:30 in the morning, and I'd lay out the sports pages. Then I'd go home around 9 o'clock. I'd come back at 6 o'clock and start taking the night basketball games. And so I'm all alone in this building, in not the best of neighborhoods, and I hear this clump, clump, clump coming up the stairs, and it's Lou Duva. And I had never seen him before. The first sight of Lou Duva for a young man is a frightening sight, As I said to him later on, Lou, I asked him how many years he boxed. He told me, I said, "Lou, you had to be a puncher, not a boxer with that face." So, he really, what can I say? I love the guy, but he looked like an ad for a fighter who had 4 too many fights. And so he says to me, "I'm here." I said, "Well, who are you?" He says, "Here," and he hands me an envelope. I said, "Well, what is this?" He says, "Give this to Gooter. Don't open it. It's none of your business. And remember, my fight gets the streamer on the first page." And he walks out. I go, "Who is that?" I didn't know what to do. Well, in those days, writers weren't paid very much. And writers who've been around a long time, and I had not been around a long time at that, learned you don't do it. I mean, this is not the way it is today. There was graft. And he was paying this fellow for headline in the paper. But that's how we met. And I'll tell you, we had a lot of fun together.
I bet.
He was the soul. I'll put it this way: he was the leftover soul of what used to be boxing. He had an arena called Ice World out in. It wasn't his arena; he rented it out out near Patterson somewhere. And they were really a weekly fight arena, and they were the last of the group in New Jersey, certainly. And the characters that came, the fighters that fought there, it was just. I remember when I was a kid. I might have been 10 years old the first time I went. There was a fight club. Newark had 52 fights a year. That's the way it used to be.
Yeah.
And it was in Springfield area, Newark, and it was called Laurel Garden. And this nickname was the Tub of Blood, so you understood exactly what kind of place it was. But unless you had a fight at Laurel Garden, you couldn't, or one or two others like that around the country, you couldn't get in the Garden. We got guys fighting for world titles who had 11 fights. And in those days, you had to have about 25 fights to qualify for an 8-rounder at the Garden. That's gone. That's gone. But I want to say this because you didn't ask me what I'm going to say because I believe it with all my heart.
Go for it, Jerry Izenberg.
Boxing, people say, why do you like boxing so much?
Yep.
Okay, as a writer, very simple. How many people are in the ring? A referee and 2 people. How many people in the corner? A trainer, and maybe the manager is on the side. A cut man, certainly. You got enough people to write about it, but not too many people to write about it. You can get to the heart and soul of what happened that night, sometimes more often by talking to the loser. That's one reason. Another reason I love it is because of the names. I mean, they just when I write about Prohibition in this book, there was a fighter there was a guy, a hanger-on who brought Primo Carnero over. His name was Good Time Charlie, Choloi Friedman. Mm-hmm. And Good Time Charlie was signed. The only man said, "Okay, you can travel with him, and I'll pay you to do it." And now he's in Philadelphia, and he's fighting a guy named Roy Ace Clark, who was pretty good heavyweight in his day, and was starting a comeback. So this guy was never told about Carnero rules. The 2 things were no hitting in the face, and you lose. You absolutely lose. So to make sure Good Time Charlie was always in the opponent's corner. Mm-hmm. Now he comes back, the opponent, Roy Clark, comes back, and he says, "You know, I can beat this guy, and my comeback will be really successful. It'll be really." And Clark, and he's told, "You really think you can beat him?" "Oh yeah." So Good Time Charlie reaches in the pocket of his cardigan sweater, pulls out 2 wads of cotton, sticks him up Roy's nose. Have you ever tried to pull cotton out of your nose with when you're wearing boxing gloves? Has to open his mouth to breathe. Carnero hits him on the jaw, breaks his jaw, fight over.
Not so good time for somebody not named Charlie right there, Jerry.
Oh, yeah, it was a long time. He went out to the West Coast. Another guy, Bombo Chevalier, who was a heavyweight who I apparently once won a fight somewhere. I don't know where.
I love that. And it's all in this book, Once There Were Giants. Jerry, before I let you go, what is the genesis of wearing a tuxedo and dressing up like it's a formal event for something that obviously is a brutal sport? Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, if you let me steal in one more minute, I will say it is a brutal sport, but boxing is, because it's so hard to understand and so easy when you really begin to understand. It is at once and the same time the most brutal and the most beautiful ballet. Now, in answer to your question, I think you got to go back to Ali. Because that's when the people would wear a lot of things besides tuxedos. I mean, they wore capes and masks and everything. That whole group that surfaced. There was a song called "Street Life." You can be anything you want, and these people wanted to be ermine-wearing people. There's only so much a woman can ask spandex to do, but they asked for more, and that was the ringside crowd in those days.
Jerry, congrats on the book, Once There Were Giants, available now. Love always strolling down memory lane with you. Enjoy the Derby. You got an early favorite for the Derby this year?
No, but I put Irish War Cry back into the mix after he threw in a pretty good race at the Wood.
Okay, we'll keep that in mind. And you've got a book signing at the Barnes & Noble in Henderson, Nevada, outside of Vegas, coming up on Friday for 5 to 7. So travel safe, Jerry.
Okay, and thanks so much for everything.
Always. Jerry Izenberg, Boxing Hall of Famer. once there were giants.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.